Ruth Daniels received the IRS notice 3 months after she signed her house over to her son. She opened the envelope at the kitchen table. She did not understand it at first. Then she found the words gift tax liability and the dollar amount. $41,000. She read the number 3 times. It did not change. The payment deadline was 30 days from the date on the notice. Ruth called her son David. It rang. He did not answer. She sent a text. An hour passed. 2 hours. Nothing came back. She sat by the window holding the envelope. The March light coming through the glass felt strangely far away. To explain what happened, you have to go back 6 months. Ruth owned a modest 2-bedroom house in central Ohio. Her husband Harold had bought it in the 1980s and paid it off before he died. She had lived alone there for 11 years. The neighborhood had changed and property values had climbed. The house was worth nearly 4 times what Harold had paid for it. David came to visit the previous September. His wife Karen came with him. They sat together at the kitchen table and had coffee, and brought up the subject calmly. "Mom, the estate tax situation is getting complicated for families like ours. If something happens to you, the inheritance taxes alone could be a real problem for us to manage. We talked to someone, and if you transfer the house now, as a gift, it actually reduces the overall tax burden. We've done the research." Ruth had heard of gift transfers before in a general way, but did not know the specifics. Transferring it reduces taxes? It does, with the annual exclusions and the stepped-up basis. And honestly, it just means we can take better care of you. While you're still here, you'd keep living there. Nothing changes for you day to day. It's just a paperwork thing. Just a paperwork thing. You keep living there. Nothing changes. Karen leaned forward and said in a warm voice, "Ruth, we looked into all of this and even met with a tax professional. You don't have to worry about any of the details." Ruth trusted her son. He had done the research. He had met with a professional. She told him if he brought the papers she would sign them. A week later David came back with a stack of documents. The signature lines already flagged with sticky notes. Ruth did not read through each page carefully. David had researched it. He had seen a professional. She signed. 3 months later the IRS notice arrived. Under federal tax law, the recipient of a gift is primarily responsible for paying gift tax. But the donor carries secondary liability, meaning if the recipient does not pay, the IRS can collect from the person who gave the gift. David had not made any payment, so the notice had come to Ruth. $41,000, 30 days. If you received this notice, what would you do? Late that evening a text came from David. "Mom, I'm a little tight right now. Give me a little time, I'll figure it out. Give me a little time." 30 days on the clock. Ruth put the phone down on the table. She was not angry, not at first. What came before the anger was a hollow, empty feeling. She had trusted her son and signed papers she did not fully read. And now her son was telling her he was tight on money. $41,000. Ruth had just under $44,000 in savings. Every dollar of it set aside over decades for her retirement. She did not sleep that night. At 3 in the morning she sat in the kitchen and drank a glass of water. She looked at the dark houses across the street. She wondered if any of them were sitting with something like this. A family matter that had quietly become a catastrophe. In the morning she drove to the county senior services office. She had once seen a sign there about free legal consultations for older adults. The intake worker connected her with a volunteer attorney who did elder law. The attorney listened to the whole story. Then she explained the situation plainly. The primary liability is on your son, but you have secondary liability as the donor, which is why the IRS came to you. If your son pays within the deadline, you're clear. If he doesn't, the IRS will pursue you, and penalties and interest will be added. Legally, you have options. You could pursue your son for reimbursement, but that takes time, and the deadline does not wait. Ruth asked, "Is there a legal term for making him pay me back?" "If you pay first, you can file a claim against him for the amount. It is recoverable in principle. Whether you actually recover it depends on his willingness and his finances." Whether you actually recover it. Ruth sat with that phrase. She went home and looked at her savings account balance. $43,800. If she paid the $41,000, she would have less than $3,000 left. That was her grocery money. That was her utility bills. That was everything. She could pay it. That was the strange and terrible part. She had the money. She had saved it carefully for 30 years. And she could hand it over in a single day. Because her son had not read the documents carefully enough or had not cared to. That evening she called David. He answered, "Mom, I'll pay it." Silence. "Mom, you don't have. I have one question first." "Okay. Did you know this could happen when you brought me those papers?" A long silence. "I didn't think it would go this far, Mom. I honestly didn't." She did not know if that was true. It did not change the number on the notice either way. 3 days before the deadline, Ruth drove to the IRS walk-in office in the next town. She took a number. She sat in a chair and waited. When the clerk called her, she walked to the window, showed the notice, and authorized the payment from her bank account. The clerk said, "Would you like a payment confirmation?" "Yes, please." She folded it and put it in her purse. She walked out into the afternoon. She found a bench near the parking lot and sat for a minute. $41,000 gone. Under $3,000 left. She opened her purse and took out a small notebook. The attorney had walked her through the steps for pursuing reimbursement. A demand letter first, then small claims court if he did not respond. She read through her notes again. It was not going to be easy. Taking legal action against your own child is not something your hands do automatically. Just because your head says it is the right thing. But she was not afraid. 6 months ago, she would have sat in that IRS office and cried. She would have called David and asked him what to do. This time she had read the documents, found legal help, made the payment herself, and written down the next steps in a notebook. She stood up from the bench. She had $3,000 and a plan. She was not going to fall apart. Not over this. 6 weeks later, after Ruth's attorney sent a formal demand letter, David called. "Mom, I can send you something every month. $500. Starting next month." Ruth said, "Talk to my attorney. All of it goes through her from now on." She ended the call. Her hands were completely still. She told her friend Carol about it later, over lunch. Carol said, "So what happens now?" Ruth said, "It's ongoing. But I'm all right." Carol looked at her. "How are you all right after all that?" Ruth thought about it for a moment and said, "Because I know what happened, and I know what to do about it. There's nothing left to be afraid of." That was exactly right. There are too many ways to be taken advantage of when you do not know the details. But once you know them, even after the damage is done, you can stand up and keep going. She had trusted her son because he was her son. That trust had cost her. But it had not finished her. If you have ever been handed paperwork and told not to worry about the details, this story is for you. Know what you are signing. Ask the questions. You are allowed to take the time. New stories every week on this channel. Please subscribe so you do not miss the next one.